but the SD chief was holding out the phone. "For you." Secretly relaxing with relief, Rice took the phone. "It's some school teacher," Kreutz von Mera said. "Wants to know if you can give them scenic posters of Austria for their class."
Let's do it.
Toward 11 o'clock in the morning, Robert Childan shut up his store and set off on foot for Mr. Paul Kasura's business office. Fortunately, Paul was not busy. He greeted Childan politely and offered him tea. "I will not bother you long," Childan said after they had both begun sipping. Paul's office, although small, was modern and simply furnished. On the wall, one single superb print, Moquet's Tiger, a late 13th century masterpiece. "I'm always happy to see you, Robert," Paul said in a tone that held, Childan thought, perhaps a trace of aloofness. Or perhaps it was his imagination. Childan glanced cautiously over his teacup. The man certainly looked friendly, and yet Childan sensed a change. "Your wife," Childan said, "was disappointed by my crude gift. I possibly insulted. However, with something new and untried, as I explained to you when I grafted it to you, no proper or final evaluation can be made, at least not by someone in the purely business end. Certainly you and Betty are in a better position to judge than I." Paul said, "She was not disappointed, Robert. I did not give the piece of jewelry to her." Reaching into his desk, he brought out the small white box. "It has not left this office." He knows, Childan thought. Smart man. Never even told her. So that's that. Now, Childan realized, let's hope he's not going to rave at me, some kind of accusation about my trying to seduce his wife. He could ruin me, Childan said to himself. Carefully, he continued sipping his tea, his face impassive.
Ammo here.
"Oh," he said mildly. "Interesting." Paul opened the box, brought out the pin, and began inspecting it. He held it to the light, turned it over and around. "I took the liberty of showing this to a number of business acquaintances," Paul said. "Individuals who share my taste for American historic objects or for artifacts of general artistic aesthetic merit." He eyed Robert Childan. None, of course, had ever seen such as this before. As you explained, no such contemporary work heretofore has been known. I think, too, you informed that you are sole representative. "Yes, that is so," Childan said. "You wish to hear their reaction?" Childan bowed. "These persons," Paul said, "laughed." Childan was silent. "Yet I, too, laughed behind my hand, invisible to you," Paul said, "the other day when you appeared and showed me this theme. Naturally, to protect your sang-froid, I concealed that amusement. As you no doubt recall, I remained more or less non-committal in my apparent reaction." Childan nodded. Studying the pin, Paul went on. "One can easily understand this reaction. Here is a piece of metal which has been melted until it has become shapeless. It represents nothing, nor does it have design of any intentional sort. It is merely amorphous. One might say it is mere content, deprived of form." Childan nodded. "Yet," Paul said, "I have for several days now inspected it, and for no logical reason, I feel a certain emotional fondness. Why is that, I may ask? I do not even now project into this blob, as in psychological German tests, my own psyche. I still see no shapes or forms, but it somehow partakes of Tao. You see? He motioned Childan over. It is balanced. The forces within this piece are stabilized, at rest. So to speak, this object has made its peace with the universe. It has separated from it and hence has managed to come to homeostasis. Childan nodded, studied the piece, but Paul had lost him. It does not have wabi, Paul said, nor could it ever, but... He touched the pin with his nail. Robert, this object has Wu. I believe you are right, Childan said, trying to recall what Wu was. It was not a Japanese word, it was Chinese. Wisdom, he decided, or comprehension. Anyhow, it was highly good. The hands of the artificer, Paul said, had Wu and allowed that Wu to flow into this piece. Possibly he himself knows only that this piece satisfies. It is complete, Robert. By contemplating it, we gain more Wu ourselves. We experience the tranquility associated not with art, but with holy things. I recall a shrine in Hiroshima wherein a shin bone of some medieval saint could be examined. However, this is an artifact, and that was a relic. This is alive in the now, whereas that merely remains. By this meditation, conducted by myself at great length since you were last here, I have come to identify the value which this has in opposition to historicity. I am deeply moved, as you may see. Yes, Childan said. To have no historicity and also no artistic aesthetic worth, and yet to partake of some ethereal value, that is a marvel. Just precisely because this is a miserable, small, worthless-looking blob, that, Robert, contributes to its possessing Wu. For it is a fact that Wu is customarily found in least imposing places, as in the Christian aphorism, stones rejected by the builder.
Reloading.
One experiences awareness of Wu in such trash as an old stick or a rusty beer can by the side of the road. However, in those cases, the Wu is within the viewer. It is a religious experience. Here, an artificer has put Wu into the object, rather than merely witnessed the Wu inherent in it. He glanced up. Am I making myself clear?
Weapons
Yes,
here.
Childan said.
Hold up. Hang on. Let me fix you up.
In other words, an entire new world is pointed to by this. The name for it is neither art, for it has no form, nor religion. What is it? I have pondered this pin unceasingly, yet cannot fathom it. We evidently lack the word for an object like this, so you are right, Robert. It is authentically a new thing on the face of the world. Authentic, Childan thought. Yes, it certainly is. I catch that notion, but as to the rest... Having meditated to this avail, Paul continued, I next called back in here the self-same business acquaintances. I took it upon myself, as I have done with you just now, to deliver an expostulation devoid of tact. This subject carries authority which compels an abandonment of propriety. So great is the necessity of delivering the awareness itself. I require that these individuals listen. Childan knew that for a Japanese such as Paul, to force his ideas on other persons was an almost incredible situation.
Let's go. Right behind you.
The result, Paul said, was sanguine. They were able to adopt under such duress my viewpoint. They perceived what I had delineated, so it was worth it. Having done that, I rested. Nothing more, Robert. I'm exhausted. He laid the pin back in the box. Responsibility with me has ended. Discharged. He pushed the box to Childan. Sir, it's yours, Childan said, feeling apprehensive. The situation did not fit any model he had ever experienced. A high-placed Japanese lauding to the skies a gift grafted to him and then returning it. Childan felt his knees wobble. He did not have any idea what to do. He stood plucking at his sleeve, his face flushing. Calmly, even harshly, Paul said, Robert, you must face reality with more courage. Blanching, Childan stammered, I'm confused by... Paul stood up, facing him. Take heed. The task is yours. You are the sole agent for this piece and others of its ilk. Also, you are a professional. Withdraw for a period into isolation. Meditate, possibly consult the Book of Changes. Then study your window displays, your ads, your system of merchandising. Childan gaped at him. You will see your way, Paul said. How you must go about putting these objects over in a big fashion. Childan felt stunned. The man's telling me I'm obliged to assume moral responsibility for the Ed Frank jewelry. Crackpot neurotic Japanese worldview. Nothing less than #1 spiritual and business relationship with the jewelry tolerable in the eyes of Paul Kasura.
We need to go up that ladder.
And the worst part of it was that Paul certainly spoke with authority, right out of dead center of Japanese culture and tradition. Obligation, he thought bitterly. It could stick with him the rest of his life, once incurred. Right to the grave itself. Paul had, to his own satisfaction anyhow, discharged his, but Childan's, that regrettably had the earmark of being unending. They're out of their minds, Childan said to himself. Example, they won't help a hurt man up from the gutter due to the obligation it imposes. What do you call that? I say that's typical. Just what you'd expect from a race that, when told to duplicate a British destroyer, managed even to copy the patches on the boiler as well as... Paul was eyeing him intently. Fortunately, long habit had caused Childan to suppress any show of authentic feelings automatically. He assumed a bland, sober expression, persona that correctly matched the nature of the situation. He could sense it there, the mask. This is dreadful, Childan realized. A catastrophe. Better, Paul had thought I was trying to seduce his wife. Betty. There was no chance now that she would see the piece, that his original plan would come off. Wu was incompatible with sexuality. It was, as Paul said, solemn and holy, like a relic. I gave each of these individuals one of your cards, Paul said. Pardon? Childan said, preoccupied. Your business cards, so that they could come in and inspect other examples. I see, Childan said. There is one more thing, Paul said. One of these individuals wishes to discuss this entire subject with you at his location. I have written out his name and address. Paul handed Childan a folded square of paper. He wants his business colleagues to hear. Paul added, he is an importer. He imports and exports on a mass basis, especially to South America. Radios, cameras, binoculars, tape recorders, the like. Childan gazed down at the paper. He deals, of course, in immense quantity, Paul said, perhaps tens of thousands of each item. His company controls various enterprises that manufacture for him at low overhead, all located in the Orient where there is cheaper labor. Why is he, Childan began. Paul said, pieces such as this. He picked up the pin once more, briefly. Closing the lid, he returned the box to Childan. Can be mass-produced, either in base metal or plastic, from a mold, in any quantity desired. After a time, Shodan said, "What about Wu? Will that remain in the pieces?" Paul said nothing.
Nice shot.
"You advise me to see him?" Shodan said. "Yes," Paul said. "Why?" "Charms," Paul said. Shodan stared. "Good luck charms to be worn by relatively poor people. A line of amulets to be peddled all over Latin America and the Orient. Most of the masses still believe in magic, you know. Spells, potions. It's a big business, I am told." Paul's face was wooden, his voice toneless. "It sounds," Shodan said slowly, "as if there would be a good deal of money in it." Paul nodded. "Was this your idea?" Shodan said. "No," Paul said. He was silent then. "Your employer," Shodan thought. "You showed the piece to your superior, who knows this importer. Your superior, or some influential person over your head, someone who has power over you, someone rich and big, contacted this importer. That's why you're giving it back to me." Shodan realized. "You want no part of this. But you know what I know, that I will go to this address and see this man. I have to. I have no choice. I will lease the designs or sell them on a percentage basis. Some deal will be made between me and this party. Clearly out of your hands, entirely. Bad taste on your part to presume to stop me or argue with me. There is a chance here for you," Paul said, "to become extremely wealthy."
Weapons here!
He continued to gaze stoically ahead. "The idea strikes me as bizarre," Shodan said. "Making good luck charms out of such art objects, I can't imagine it. For it is not your natural line of business. You are devoted to the savored esoteric. Myself, I am the same. And so are those individuals who will shortly visit your store, those whom I mentioned." Shodan said,
Great shot.
"What would you do if you were me?
Right behind you.
Don't under-evaluate the possibility suggested by the esteemed importer. He is a shrewd personage. You and I, we have no awareness of the vast number of uneducated. They can obtain from mold-produced identical objects a joy which would be denied to us. We must suppose that we have the only one of a kind, or at least something rare, possessed by a very few. And, of course, something truly authentic. Not a model or replica." He continued to gaze past Shodan at empty space. Not something cast by the tens of thousands. Has he stumbled onto correct notion, Shodan wondered, that certain of the historic objects in stores such as mine, not to mention many items in his personal collection, are imitations? There seems a trace of hint in his words. As if in ironic undertone, he is telling me a message quite different from what appears. Ambiguity, as one trips over in the oracle. Quality, as they say, of the Oriental mind. Shodan thought. He's actually saying, "Which are you, Robert? He whom the oracle calls the inferior man, or that other for whom all the good advice is meant? Must decide here. You may trot on one way or the other, but not both. Moment of choice now. And which way will the superior man go?" Robert Shodan inquired of himself. At least according to Paul Kasura. And what we have before us here isn't a many thousand-year-old compilation of divinely inspired wisdom. This is merely the opinion of one mortal, one young Japanese businessman. Yet there's a kernel to it. Woo, as Paul would say. The woo of this situation is this. Whatever our personal dislikes, there can be no doubt. The reality lies in the importer's direction. Too bad for what we had intended. We must adapt, as the oracle states. And after all, the originals can still be sold in my shop. to connoisseurs, as, for example, Paul's friend. "You wrestle with yourself," Paul observed. "No doubt it is in such a situation that one prefers to be alone." He had started toward the office door. "I have already decided." Paul's eyes flickered. Bowing, Childan said, "I will follow your advice. Now I will leave to visit the importer." He held up the folded slip of paper. Oddly, Paul did not seem pleased. He merely grunted and returned to his desk. They contained their emotions to the last, Childan reflected. "Many thanks for your business help," Childan said as he made ready to depart. "Someday I will, if possible, reciprocate. I will remember." But still the young Japanese showed no reaction. Too true, Childan thought, what we used to say. They are inscrutable. Accompanying him to the door, Paul seemed deep in thought. All at once he blurted, "American artisans made this piece hand by hand, correct? Labor of their personal bodies?" "Yes, from initial design to final polish." "Sir, will these artisans play along?" "I would imagine they dreamed otherwise for their work." "I'd hazard they could be persuaded," Childan said. The problem to him appeared minor. "Yes," Paul said. "I suppose so." Something in his tone made Robert Childan take sudden note. A nebulous and peculiar emphasis there, and then it swept over Childan. Without a doubt, he had split the ambiguity. He saw. Of course. Whole affair. A cruel dismissal of American efforts taking place before his eyes. Cynicism, but God forbid he had swallowed hook, line, and sinker. Got me to agree step by step, led me along the garden path to this conclusion. Products of American hands, good for nothing but to be models for junky good luck charms. This was how the Japanese ruled, not crudely, but with subtlety, ingenuity, timeless cunning. Christ! We're barbarians compared to them, Childan realized. We're no more than boobs against such pitiless reasoning. Paul did not tell me that our art was worthless. He got me to say it for him. And as a final irony, he regretted my utterance. Faint, civilized gesture of sorrow as he heard the truth out of me. "He's broken me," Childan almost said aloud. Fortunately, however, he managed to keep it only a thought. As before, he held it in his interior world, apart and secret, for himself alone. Humiliated me and my race, and I'm helpless. There's no avenging this. We are defeated, and our defeats are like this, so tenuous, so delicate that we're hardly able to perceive them. In fact, we have to rise a notch in our evolution to know it ever happened. What more proof could be presented as to the Japanese fitness to rule? He felt like laughing, possibly with appreciation. Yes, he thought, that's what it is, as when one hears a choice anecdote. I've got to recall it, savor it later on, even relate it, but to whom? Problem there. Too personal for narration. In the corner of Paul's office, a wastebasket. Into it, Robert Childan said to himself, with this blob, this wool-ridden piece of jewelry. Could I do it? Toss it away, end the situation before Paul's eyes. Can't even toss it away, he discovered as he gripped the piece. Must not, if you anticipate facing your Japanese fellow man again. Damn them, I can't free myself of their influence, can't give in to impulse. All spontaneity crushed. Paul scrutinized him, needing to say nothing, the man's very presence enough. got my conscience snared, has run an invisible string from this blob in my hands, up my arm, to my soul. Guess I've lived around them too long. Too late now to flee, to get back among whites and white ways. Robert Childan said, Paul. His voice, he noted, croaked in sickly escape. No control, no modulation. Yes, Robert. Paul, I am humiliated.
Nice job.
The room reeled. Why so, Robert? Tones of concern but detached, above involvement. Paul, one moment. He fingered the bit of jewelry. It had become slimy with sweat. I am proud of this work. There can be no consideration of trashy good luck charms. I reject. Once more he could not make out the young Japanese man's reaction, only the listening ear, the mere awareness. Thank you, however, Robert Childan said. Paul bowed. Robert Childan bowed. The men who made this, Childan said, are American proud artists, myself included. To suggest trashy good luck charms therefore insults us, and I ask for apology. Incredible, prolonged silence. Paul surveyed him. One eyebrow lifted slightly, and his thin lips twitched. A smile?
I owe you one.
I demand, Childan said. That was all. He could carry it no further. He now merely waited. Nothing occurred. Please, he said, help me. Paul said,
Weapons over here.
forgive my arrogant imposition. He held out his hand. All right, Robert Childan said. They shook hands. Calmness descended in Childan's heart. I have lived through and out, he knew. All over. Grace of God. It existed at the exact moment for me. Another time, other life. Could I ever dare once more press my luck? Probably not. He felt melancholy. Brief instant, as if I rose to the surface and saw, unencumbered. Life is short, he thought. Art, or something not life, is long, stretching out endless, like concrete words. Flat, white, unsmoothed by any passage over or across it. Here I stand, but no longer. Taking the small box, he put the Ed Frank jewelry piece away in his coat pocket.
Weapons here.
Chapter 12.
Look.
Mr. Ramsey said,
Move it out.
Mr. Tagomi, this is Mr. Yatabe. He retired to a corner of the office, and the slender, elderly gentleman came forward. Holding out his hand, Mr. Tagomi said, I am glad to meet you in person, sir. The light, fragile old hand slipped to his own. He shook without pressing and released at once. Nothing broken, I hope, he thought. He examined the old gentleman's features, finding himself pleased. Such a stern, coherent spirit. No fogging of wits. Certainly lucid transmission of all the stable ancient traditions. Best quality which the old could represent. And then he discovered that he was facing General Tadeki, the former Imperial Chief of Staff. Mr. Tagomi bowed low. General, he said. Where is the third party? General Tadeki said. On the double, he nears, Mr. Tagomi said. Informed by self at hotel room. His mind utterly rattled, he retreated several steps in the bowing position, scarcely able to regain an erect posture. The general seated himself. Mr. Ramsey, no doubt still ignorant of the old man's identity, assisted with the chair, but showed no particular deference. Mr. Tagomi hesitantly took a chair facing. We loiter, the general said. Regrettably, but unavoidably. True, Mr. Tagomi said. 10 minutes passed. Neither man spoke. Excuse me, sir, Mr. Ramsey said at last, fidgeting. I will depart unless needed. Mr. Tagomi nodded, and Mr. Ramsey departed. Tea, General, Mr. Tagomi said. No, sir. Sir, Mr. Tagomi said, I admit to fear. I sense in this encounter something terrible. The General inclined his head. Mr. Baines, whom I have met, Mr. Tagomi said, and entertained in my home, declares himself a Swede, yet perusal persuades one that he is in fact a highly placed German of some sort. I say this because... Please continue. Thank you. General, his agitation regarding this meeting causes me to infer a connection with the political upheavals in the Reich. Mr. Tagomi did not mention another fact, his awareness of the General's failure to appear at the time anticipated. The General said, Sir, now you are fishing, not informal. His grey eyes twinkled in fatherly manner, no malice there. Mr. Tagomi accepted the rebuke. Sir, is my presence in this meeting merely a formality to baffle the Nazi snoops? Naturally, the General said. We are interested in maintaining a certain fiction. Mr. Baines is representative for Tor Am Industries of Stockholm, purely businessman. And I am Shinjiro Yatabe. Mr. Tagomi thought, and I am Tagomi. That part is so. No doubt the Nazis have scrutinized Mr. Baines's comings and goings, the General said. He rested his hands on his knees, sitting bolt upright, as if Mr. Tagomi thought he were sniffing far-off beef tea odor. But to demolish the fiction, they must resort to legalities. That is the genuine purpose. Not to deceive, but to require the formalities in case of exposure. You see, for instance, that to apprehend Mr. Baines they must do more than merely shoot him down, which they could do were he to travel as, well, travel without his verbal umbrella. I see, Mr. Tagomi said. Sounds like a game, he decided. But they know the Nazi mentality, so I suppose it is of use. The desk intercom buzzed. Mr. Ramsey's voice. Sir, Mr. Baines is here. Shall I send him on in? Yes, Mr. Tagomi cried. The door opened, and Mr. Baines, sleekly dressed, his clothes all quite pressed and masterfully tailored, his features composed, appeared. General Tadeki rose to face him. Mr. Tagomi also rose. All three men bowed. Sir, Mr. Baines said to the General, I am Captain R. Wegener of the Reich's Naval Counterintelligence. As understood, I represent no one but myself and certain private, unnamed individuals, no departments or bureaus of the Reich government of any sort. The General said, Herr Wegener,
Cover me.
I understand that you in no way officially allege representation of any branch of the Reich government. I am here as an unofficial private party who, by virtue of former position with the Imperial Army, can be said to have access to circles in Tokyo who desire to hear whatever you have to say. Weird discourse, Mr. Tagomi thought, but not unpleasant. Certain near-musical quality to it. Refreshing relief, in fact. They sat down. Without preamble, Mr. Baines said, I would like to inform you, and those you have access to, that there is in advanced stage in the Reich a program called Löwenzahn, Dandelion. Yes, the General said, nodding as if he had heard this before, but Mr. Tagomi thought he seemed quite eager for Mr. Baines to go on. Dandelion, Mr. Baines said, consists of an incident on the border between the Rocky Mountain states and the United States. The General nodded, smiling slightly. U.S. troops will be attacked and will retaliate by crossing the border and engaging the regular RMS troops stationed nearby. The U.S. troops have detailed maps showing Midwest Army installations. This is step 1. Step 2 consists of a declaration by Germany regarding the conflict. A volunteer detachment of Wehrmacht paratroopers will be sent to aid the U.S. However, this is further camouflage. Yes, the general said, listening. The basic purpose of Operation Dandelion, Mr. Bain said, is an enormous nuclear attack on the home islands without advance warning of any kind. He was silent then. With purpose of wiping out royal family, home defense army, most of Imperial Navy, civil population, industries, resources, General Tedeki said, leaving overseas possessions for absorption by the Reich. Mr. Bain said nothing. The general said, "What else?" Mr. Bain seemed at a loss. "The date, sir," the general said. "All changed," Mr. Bain said, "due to the death of M. Bormann. At least, I presume. I am not in contact with the Abwehr now." Presently, the general said, "Go on, Herr Wegener." "What we recommend is that the Japanese government enter into the Reich's domestic situation. Or at least, that was what I came here to recommend. Certain groups in the Reich favor Operation Dandelion, certain others do not. It was hoped that those opposing it could come to power upon the death of Chancellor Bormann." "But while you were here," the general said, "Herr Bormann died, and the political situation took its own solution. Dr. Goebbels is now Reich's Chancellor. The upheaval is over." He paused. "How does that faction view Operation Dandelion?" Mr. Bain said, "Dr. Goebbels is an advocate of Dandelion."
Let's move, people.
Unnoticed by them, Mr. Tagomi closed his eyes.
Over here.
"Who stands opposed?" General Tedeki asked. Mr. Bain's voice came to Mr. Tagomi. "SS General Heydrich." "I am taken by surprise," General Tedeki said. "I am dubious.
First aid kit.
Is this legitimate information or only a viewpoint which you and your colleagues hold?"
Let me heal you up.
Mr. Bain said, "Administration of the East, that is, the area now held by Japan, would be by the Foreign Office.
Hold on.
Rosenberg's people working directly with the Chancery. This was a bitterly disputed issue in many sessions between the principals last year. I have photostats of notes made. The police demanded authority but were turned down.
Let's go.
They are to manage the space colonization, Mars, Luna, Venus. That's to be their domain. Once this division of authority was settled, the police put all their weight behind the space program and against Dandelion. Rivalry, General Tedeki said. One group played against another by the leader, so he is never challenged. True, Mr. Bain said. That is why I was sent here, to plead for your intervention. It would still be possible to intervene. The situation is still fluid. It will be months before Dr. Goebbels can consolidate his position. He will have to break the police, possibly have Heydrich and other top SS and SD leaders executed. Once that is done, we are to give support to the Sicherheitsdienst, General Tedeki interrupted. The most malignant portion of German society? Mr. Bain said, that is right. The Emperor, General Tedeki said, would never tolerate that policy. He regards the Reich's elite corps, wherever the black uniform is worn, the death's head, the castle system, all to him is evil. Evil, Mr. Tagomi thought. Yes, it is. Are we to assist it in gaining power in order to save our lives? Is that the paradox of our earthly situation? I cannot face this dilemma, Mr. Tagomi said to himself. That man should have to act in such moral ambiguity. There is no way in this. All is muddled, all chaos of light and dark, shadow and substance. The Wehrmacht Mr. Bain said, the military is sole possessor in the right of the hydrogen bomb. Where the black shirts have used it, they have done so only under army supervision. The Chancery and the Bormann never allowed any nuclear armament to go to the police. In Operation Dandelion, all will be carried out by OKW, the Army High Command. I am aware of that, General Tedeki said. The moral practices of the black shirts exceed in ferocity that of the Wehrmacht, but their power is less. We should reflect solely on reality, on actual power, not on ethical intentions. Yes, we must be realists, Mr. Tagomi said aloud. Both Mr. Baines and General Tedeki glanced at him. To Mr. Baines, the General said, what specifically do you suggest? That we establish contact with the SD here in the Pacific States? Directly negotiate with... I do not know who is SD chief here, some repellent character, I imagine. The local SD knows nothing, Mr. Baines said. Their chief here, Bruno Kreutz von Mera, is an old-time Partei-hack. Ein Altparteigenosse, an imbecile. No one in Berlin would think of telling him anything. He merely carries out routine assignments. What then? The general sounded angry. The consul here, or the Reich's ambassador in Tokyo? This talk will fail, Mr. Tagomi thought. No matter what is at stake, we cannot enter the monstrous, schizophrenic morass of Nazi internecine intrigue. Our minds cannot adapt. It must be handled delicately, Mr. Baines said, through a series of intermediaries. Someone close to Heydrich who is stationed outside of the Reich in a neutral country, or someone who travels back and forth between Tokyo and Berlin. Do you have someone in mind? The Italian foreign minister, Count Ciano. An intelligent, reliable, very brave man, completely devoted to international understanding. However, his contact with the SD apparatus is non-existent. But he might work through someone else in Germany, economic interests, such as the Krupps, or through General Speidel, or possibly even through Waffen-SS personages. The Waffen-SS is less fanatic, more in the mainstream of German society. Your establishment, the Abwehr. It would be futile to attempt to reach Heydrich through you. The black shirts utterly rely on us. They've been trying for 20 years to get Partei approval for liquidating us in toto. Aren't you in excessive personal danger from them? General Tedeki said. They are active here on the Pacific coast, I understand. Active but inept, Mr. Baines said. The Foreign Office man, Rice, is skillful but opposed to the SD. He shrugged. General Tedeki said, I would like your photostats to turn over to my government.
Reloading.
Any material you have pertaining to these discussions in Germany. And, he pondered, proof of objective nature. Certainly, Mr. Baines said. He reached into his coat and took out a flat silver cigarette case. You will find each cigarette to be a hollow container for microfilm. He passed the case to General Tedeki. What about the case itself? The general said, examining it. It seems too valuable an object to give away. He started to remove the cigarettes from it. Smiling, Mr. Baines said, the case too. Thank you. Also smiling, the general put the case away in his top-coat pocket. The desk intercom buzzed. Mr. Tagomi pressed the button. Mr. Ramsey's voice came. Sir, there is a group of SD men in the downstairs lobby. They are attempting to take over the building. The Times guards are scuffling with them. In the distance, noise of a siren. Outside the building from the street below Mr. Tagomi's window. Army MPs are on the way, plus San Francisco Kempeitai. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey, Mr. Tagomi said. You have done an honorable thing to report placidly. Mr. Baines and General Tedeki were listening, both rigid. Sirs, Mr. Tagomi said to them, we will no doubt kill the SD thugs before they reach this floor. To Mr. Ramsey he said, turn off the power to the elevators. Yes, Mr. Tagomi. Mr. Ramsey broke the connection. Mr. Tagomi said, we will wait He opened his desk drawer